Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. You're just in time. I'm about to tell the story of the metabolic apple. Come on, children. Come closer. I don't bite.
Joe,
what's the metabolic apple?
Well, children, it all begins with cellular respiration, of course. You see, it all starts with this apple.
cellular respiration begins with food intake. Cells will absorb sugars from food. This begins a process called glycolysis.
Guys, look. This is glycolysis.
Oh my god, glycolysis!
Glucose 6-phosphate undergoes phosphorylation and isomerization to create fructose 1,6-biphosphate. This molecule is unstable and it cleaves to form 2G3P. These molecules are oxidized and phosphorylated twice to form 2 pyruvate molecules and 2 ATP.
Oh, Luca, you have a question?
Yeah. So Joe, what happens after glycolysis if there's no oxygen present?
Well, if there's no oxygen present, then the 2 pyruvates will undergo a process known as fermentation.
Fermentation?
Yes.
In ethanol fermentation, NADH transfers its hydrogen atom to acetaldehyde, which leads to the formation of ethanol. Lactic acid fermentation occurs in muscle cells when not enough oxygen is available to power the aerobic portion of the cellular respiration pathway.
So Joe, is that an example of glycolysis?
Yeah, exactly. But you see, the next step is pyruvate oxidation.
Pyruvate enters the mitochondrial matrix in the presence of oxygen. It is decarboxylated and attached to CoA, forming 2 acetyl-CoAs.
Wake up!
Glycolysis.
No, the next step is the Krebs cycle.
Acetyl-CoA is added to oxaloacetate, and through several redox reactions, releases carbon dioxide and produces ATP. Oxaloacetate is reproduced, creating the cyclic process at the end.
The next step is the electron transport chain. Electrons are passed from carrier to carrier and lose energy as they pass through them. Just like I'm passing this apple. Look, guys.
Oh my god!
Energized electrons carried by electron carriers are brought to the electron transport chain. Electrons are passed in redox from carrier to carrier, losing energy each time. This energy is used to actively pump protons into the inner membrane, creating an electrochemical gradient. This gradient allows ATP synthase to phosphorylate ADP to inorganic phosphate to create ATP.
While cellular respiration is going on, a process known as photosynthesis is also taking place. The products formed from the apple in cellular respiration are the reactants for photosynthesis.
The CO2 released from the Krebs cycle in cellular respiration, along with sunlight and water, are the reactants for photosynthesis. This takes place in the chloroplast of the plant leaves.
One of the main parts of photosynthesis are the light-dependent reactions.
Photons from the sun strike each photosystem in the thylakoid membrane to excite electrons. The electrons are obtained as the result of photolysis of water. H2O is split into H2 and O2. H2 remains in the membrane, contributing to the electrochemical gradient. O2 is diffused through the membrane, becoming atmospheric oxygen. The electrochemical gradient powers ATP synthase to phosphorylate ADP and inorganic phosphate to create ATP. ATP will be used in the Calvin cycle.
What's your question, Marco?
So you know the late dependent reactions?
Yeah.
Where do the products go?
Well, they go into the Calvin cycle, which is a series of reactions that produce sugars, such as the ones found in this apple.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it is quite interesting. Have a look.
The Calvin cycle takes place in the stroma in the absence of light. The cycle begins with the fixation of carbon to 6 RuBP molecules, with the help of an enzyme called rubisco. The products from light-dependent reactions are used to power the cycle.
And that concludes the metabolic apple. So, guys, tell me any similarities you noticed between the two processes.
I noticed one.
Oh, Claudia, please tell me.
So I noticed that in cellular respiration, a proton gradient is created, which is called the electrochemical gradient. And that's used to phosphorylate ADP into MPI to create ATP, but that's in the mitochondria. But in photosynthesis, the same thing happens in the thylakoid membrane. So the electrochemical gradient is used to create ATP in the thylakoid in photosynthetic cells.
Wow, that's a good observation you made.
I tell you what I noticed.
Sure, Smelly.
I noticed that oxygen is used in cellular respiration to allow the breaking down of sugar to proceed into the Krebs cycle, while oxygen is used as a product in the photosynthesis reactions, and also that CO2 is released during the Krebs cycle but is used as a reactant to power the Calvin cycle, which makes glucose.
Wow,
right.
that's very good.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I also noticed that in cellular respiration, glucose is broken down to create energy, but it's the opposite in photosynthesis because energy is initially used to create glucose, which is the nourishment of the cells.
Wow, I'm glad to see you guys really noticed and all the similarities.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
You really
I
helped
appreciate
us.
you reading the metabolic
I
habit.
love this book.
Thanks for watching.
Oh my god!